Welcome everyone to Sitecore User Group Coimbatore. So we're glad to see you another session. So basically, SUGCB is we are a group of Sitecore enthusiasts who we are helping Sitecore people to gathering the session and then organizing session with the presenters with have some topics to share the community. So today is our speaker is Mr. Naveen Sundararajan. Before that, we are organizer for Sitecore User Group. Prabhu Ranganathan, Gautam, and myself, Vignesh. So our today's topic is Sitecore Order Cloud certification crash course. This session is taken by Mr. Naveen Sundararajan, who is a Sitecore enthusiastic. Whoever there in the Sitecore world, he's a well-known person. Also, he is 3-time Sitecore MVP. Yeah, nothing more wait. I'll hand it over the session to Naveen to take this session. So thanks for joining us, Naveen, for this session.
Yeah, thank you, Vignesh. That was short and sweet. Nice. Yeah, so I will get started straight away without wasting anybody's time because it's Saturday. I'll share my screen first. That's the share option. Okay. I hope I'm doing the right thing. Kind of share. Is my screen visible?
Yes.
Okay, fine. So as Vignesh already told, we will do a quick run through of what's covered in Sitecore Order Cloud. To be frank, actually, this exam was one of the easiest, basically because of the number of questions, and the duration is just 1 hour. And while I wrote it, it was just 30 questions, but I think they now have increased to 40, I think, and it has some new study material that I saw on the Sitecore e-learning platform. So if you actually go through the e-learning platform, if you go through the e-learning platform, I think that should be more than enough. That's what I felt, because in case of the other certifications, you had to prepare outside the e-learning platform. But in case of this one, I felt that it was straightforward. If you read the concepts properly in the e-learning platform, once you buy the exam, you can get access to the e-learning platform. And whatever you study there is what gets covered in the exam. It was basically also a very basic concept in terms of terminologies, not even getting into any kind of questions related to code or anything like that. So if you're very well versed with the terminologies, it should be straightforward. And whatever I have covered here basically is just a material from Sitecore e-learning site. I have not done much. I have just added wherever possible some diagrams, but most of the screenshots are from the Sitecore documentation or the e-learning course. So let's see what is there in the course. If you want to stop me, you can let me know. But otherwise, I will just run through this and then we can talk, if that is fine.
Yeah. So please, if you have any questions, post it in the chat. So you will let us in the last.
Yeah, I've got about 60 slides, so we'll just cover that and then maybe handle anything that comes. So as I already specified, the disclaimer, the Sitecore e-learning course is the original source of truth. Go to the topics and links there. The material is supplementary to that guide. I've not modified any of the concepts there. I've just picked up and added whatever is there. I have not even added my viewpoints in this, but I've added diagrams wherever possible. So directly into the Order Cloud certification exam. So this exam is basically a basic course, like whatever you do here. It is not a proof that you are an expert in this area. It's just to show that you are well versed with the terminology. So that's what is also tested in the exam. It's not any expert knowledge that's tested here. Easy to pass. If you have access to the Order Cloud portal, the sandbox, which you can register and log in, and then you can see what are the API endpoints, but that's not very much necessary actually. If you study the material, that's more than enough. The cost is $350 like any other exam, and it's online proctored, and you can access it through the Criterion web assessor, and you should ensure that all your prerequisites are available in the machine. Ensure that your desk is clear, free of clutter, the normal thing that you check in case of any other proctored exam. You can take the exam from your home like any other exam, like other Sitecore exams. Get rid of any sticky notes or paper, anything on the walls or the paper and things like that. Yeah, I think I covered this even the exam cloud exam. Like I was disturbed because of that. They couldn't see my hands, or I was looking away from the monitor. So they constantly ensured that I looked at the computer always. But it was, in case of the other exam, it's around 1.5 to 2 hours. But in this case, it's just 1 hour. So I think the focus will not be a problem in this case. So there should be no external disturbance or any doorbells. Ensure that somebody is there to handle those. So be there at 15 minutes prior to the exam. So you can log in through the Criterion web assessor like the other exams. You can launch the exam only 15 minutes prior to just 5 or 10 minutes prior, you'll get the launch button and you can click it, and then your exam gets launched. So that's all the normal criteria with any other Sitecore exam. So the same thing is applicable here also. So directly jumping into the exam competencies for Order Cloud, you have about 40 questions. So competency 1 is about Order Cloud architecture and conventions, which is about 7.5%. Then comes integration, which is 15%. Then this user management access control, which is 17.5%. Environments, which is 5%. Product management, 22.5%. Order and fulfill management is 22.5% again. And then last section on troubleshooting, where they give you some errors and ask you to find out why that error occurs, which is fairly straightforward again. Like they ask questions related to when do you get a 404 error kind of thing. So that's not a big deal. So when you look at the split up of the exam, again, in case of competency 1, there are 3 questions based on about 7.5% out of 40. You have 6 questions in competency 2, then comes competency 3 with 7 questions. Competency 5 has 9 questions, which is the product management, and then the order management, which is actually what Order Cloud is all about, right? Like you need to understand what is order management, order fulfillment. So that's what is covered in 5 and 6. The last one is again troubleshooting. So that's 4 questions. So the competency 1 is about Order Cloud architecture and conventions. So Order Cloud is a cloud-based API first and headless marketplace development platform. So it follows the Mac architecture, which is nothing but microservices, API first, cloud native, and headless. It runs on Azure, so it's cloud native, and all the features that are related to any API platform are applicable. It's all RESTful APIs. You have all the APIs having this the normal verbs like get, put, post, batch, delete are all available. It is language agnostic, so you can plug in your own development framework and build your head and then consume the APIs. It follows the headless architecture. It is microservice based. It has SSL support, which is HTTPS based again. So it has multiple SDK support wherein you can build your head in a platform of choice. It has JSON, like all the objects are they come out as JSON over HTTP. It is compatible with OAuth 2 specification, which is about we'll cover in the coming slides. So it follows the OAuth 2 specification, then Open API 3.0 specification. So like any like in case of commerce application, you normally have probably worked on in the past, wherein you normally have a user or a buyer who goes to a site, orders items by adding it to a cart, then checks out, makes a payment, and then he gets the product, right? So in this case, the Order Cloud is sitting between the shopper and then an external system might be there on the other side, which might be used by the shipping company, where your order is fulfilled, and then it crosses boundaries, like one application to another, and all the provision is there for it to do that, like all kind of integration. Mainly when we talk about webhooks and integration events, it's all available. So you can plug in your logic at whatever time you want, so that you can delegate the functionality to other applications. So that's one good thing about Order Cloud. It's a big scale application where you just don't think in one line, like you can think in multiple dimensions, because there are so many entities involved. So directly jumping into the platform extensibility, it is extensible basically because it has integration with webhooks. You can write your own webhooks and plug in that. So when an API endpoint fires, then it completes its processing. Then the webhook gets a request of what happened and the response. So the other side, the application, the other side can use that webhook and do other processing that is possible or required. Then there is this important concept called integration events, which is like you, for example, we will see that in order fulfillment, wherein if there is a shipping process involved, then there may be multiple suppliers involved, and they might have their own processes to fulfill that order, then build that order and send back the payment amount and things like that. So these might be handled by different workflows, different applications, different process might be involved. You can plug in all that using this integration event. So I felt very very mammoth to me. But then, because I have not implemented anything in Order Cloud, I would be really excited to do this. But yeah, on the outset, when I looked at the concepts and all that, it seemed really big and heavy duty. So that's something very nice. And there is something called as Order Cloud Catalyst, which gives you strongly typed webhooks, which again seem very interesting to me. But yeah, only when we start using, we might see some issues or a real-time experience. So that's something, just be aware of these terminologies about integration events and webhooks. So there is a post hook and a pre-hook. Pre-hook is mainly used in terms of before hitting the actual processing, any validation it does, and then it says, no, we can't process further. So that kind of information comes out through pre-hook, and the post-hook is anytime after the processing is happening. So that time you can fire the pre-hook, the post-hook, and send the information needed, like for example, an order ID or things like that. So there are two types of webhooks, pre-hook and post-hook, in case of Order Cloud. Then the most important concept that I really liked, and even you might have done if you have worked with some other frameworks, API first frameworks, you might have come across this, like me webhooks and my endpoints, which is more like it helps you do impersonation and personalization on behalf of another user, so that you can see from a personal point of view how the system will behave, and you can build the application. So that's very useful. Like you can use the me endpoint. So if you get a chance, just get into a sandbox API and try to use these endpoints to really understand what it is, and it is a good experience actually. Although the exam might not need, you just need to understand that the me endpoints are useful to do impersonation or any kind of personalization, to see how personalization is working from point of that particular user. You are replicating that user, you are actually impersonating that user and seeing how that is working from the user end point of view. So that way this me endpoints are useful. So there are different entities within me endpoints. We have my sellers, my cost centers, my addresses, all these different endpoints for me and my stuff entities. So the basic building blocks, like already we touched upon, there is the supplier, then there is seller, there's a buyer, then there's a catalog and the user. The supplier is the person who first, the request comes actually from the buyer, right? They add the line items to a cart, and then they check out, and then they make the payment. And then what happens is the Order Cloud is mostly in the form of the seller organization, which puts all the catalogs of products, and the products are categorized based on a hierarchy. So once a request comes from a buyer, it actually comes to the seller organization, and the seller organization is what is hosting the marketplace, which has all the products, in a hierarchical base. So you can add the products are already added to a catalog, and only specific catalog can be seen by specific buyers. So that kind of permission is given at that level. So now the buyer goes and orders a product, adds line items, then he submits his order. And what happens is it goes to, based on different line items, if this seller doesn't have all the items, he might have to contact different suppliers to provide the shipment for those items. So, and then this order is fulfilled. So that's a brief outline of the whole workflow. So now when you look at the order cloud basis, there's the market, which is a marketplace, which we call MP marketplace in short. And then they are nothing but the seller organization, and they are the ones who, that is where the order cloud is hosted, for example. But then you have users who use the application, who might be a buyer who logs in, who might be an anonymous user. They can buy, they can check out and buy the product, and then it goes for fulfillment. Then you have authentication and authorization for logged in user, and anonymous or guest checkout workflow is there. And then the guest checkout workflow transitions into a proper authenticated user when they have to make the payment. So that's all logic that's involved. So apart from that, the user can take user can be attached to a seller. A seller could have a user, a buyer could have a user, or a supplier could have a user. But then we are mostly talking about, because the whole thing is represented from the seller organization. So we take that as the user actually at this point. But then the context could switch. Sometimes we could, a buyer user is somebody who's a shopper, who's going and getting a product from the website that we have hosted. So the user can be attached to buyer, seller, or supplier setup. So this is where order close is totally different. You are talking from in a multi-dimensional point of view. You're talking from a buyer point of view also. You can talk from a seller point of view. So in one of the slides, I think it's the next one, yeah. So you normally, there is this commerce strategies where you have B2B marketplaces where two big businesses can have this, right? That can have product transfer in bulk and all that. But then you can also have a customer who directly comes to a store and buys product. So otherwise, you can directly deal with the customer. Order cloud can handle all these scenarios seamlessly. Like you can start at a low level and then scale up to the higher level, all within the same marketplace. You don't need a separate instance or license. So this is something that is commonly tested in the exam, where they try to say somebody has started very small and then they want to go to the next level. So what do you do? Some of the options would be like they should buy a new license or something like that. But one we would pick up is they can use the same order cloud instance marketplace to switch from one strategy to another. So this is one of the exam sample questions that I just did on my own based on what's there in the curriculum. They have some sample questions, so I just made up my own question. So a client has a order cloud marketplace that has been used exclusively for B2B sales. Now the company's marketing strategy has changed. In addition to businesses, they would like to open sales to individual customers. What statement would be true for order cloud for this use case? So always in these questions, you'd be looking at it like order cloud is capable of everything, and that's actually true, because they have so much features and functionality like any other. Like if you look at a normal CMS, right? When we compare a Sitecore with a normal CMS is like very small level, but Sitecore offers a lot of things which sometimes become redundant for a small company. But that's how order cloud is also. It's a very massive framework which has a lot of capabilities and functionality. So the option here is this is not possible with order cloud is one of the options that I have seen in some similar questions. So which obviously we will negate. So buy a separate license is also not relevant. So it is possible to use the same marketplace and extend it for a new scenario. So that's something which is actually covered in the documentation also, and that's true actually. So that's why they have explained all the different marketing strategy like B2B, B2C, and they call this as B2B2C or something like that. So that is also possible. Only thing is you have to set up a proper APIs and users. The whole setup between relationships is all really important. So then there is this concept of segment and persona. This is directly picked up from the documentation. Segments are nothing but the ability to divide users based on their geographic location, sub-market and all that. So, but persona is more like, we have already seen this in Sitecore, right? Like we have user goals and the specific user who have a specific pattern of going through the site. They have specific behavior, communication style and ideal workflows. So you could have some questions related to segment and persona where they are asking about whether the search capability is possible. Like normally when you do promotions, you can search on a persona and assign that promotion to that persona or segment. So that's possible. There is also a sync capability that they talk to the documentation, where you can synchronize some kind of segmentation from one application, from Order Cloud to a third-party application. So that was very interesting to see, but it would be nice to implement all this, to be frank. Then there was this question that I saw, which is like based on this table. So get used to these tables. This is all again from the documentation. So there is this Order Cloud concept, and then the segment and persona ideas, and then built-in relationship. So one of the question goes like, Beyonce would like to segment funnel and referral tracking for one of our marketplaces. What Sitecore Order Cloud concept will you advise her to use? So if you're thorough with this table and you know what falls where, then you can easily pick up based on what's covered there, right? Like it says funnel and referral tracking. So that falls in the third row. So the question is asking to pick up the Order Cloud concept, which is the first column, which is nothing but buyer user. Actually, this question was framed based on the second row and second column, but I just modified so that we can just be thorough with this table. So just be aware of different segment and persona ideas and the Order Cloud concept. I think you might get one question in this. And then one of the favorite questions is about spending accounts, credit card payment, which is payment method, which will cover the next session. So next section, sorry. So this is about segment and persona. Just be well versed with the definition of segment and persona, and that it is searchable and you can assign promotions at a persona or the segmentation level, which is like a mass scale. So if you can assign promotion to a group of people, rather than assigning it specifically, you can assign it at the segmentation level. So that's something that is covered in the documentation. Important points. There is this concept of variable pricing. So Order Cloud supports offering different prices for the same product. You have that. Then you can also create catalogs specific for a specific buyer. Also, you can assign the same catalog to different buyers. So catalog is nothing but a list of products, and it might or might not have a product category to make it hierarchical. But then the idea is to give a catalog with the price, and so that the buyer can pick up what they need. A price schedule is a price assigned to the combination of a product and the buyer or a group of users. So this terminology is called a price schedule. Then there's a terminology called price break, is the ability to customize pricing related to the quantity ordered. So if you say, if you take 3 of this, it is $10, but if you take 4 of it, it is just $11. So that's the price break that they talk about. They name it as price break. Price markup is the ability wherein relative to product variants and specs, you can make adjustments to the total price of the product. So price markup is so based on size, like some of the specs might have a different pricing. So that's what it is. It covers. A price markup is the ability wherein relative to product variants and specs, you can make adjustments to the total price of the product. Targeted promotions is rule-based promotion. We'll cover that in the next few slides. Promotion redemption is nothing but your coupon code for a group of users. Get a list of, so there is also this API endpoint that's tested, like get a list of addresses visible to this user. Get is the API endpoint, which is the endpoint is addresses me/addresses. So next one is integration, which is competency 2. So in this, they mainly cover the integration event. So this is an example of an integration event where the order fulfillment is happening, and then it calls shipping rates, order calculate, order submit for approval, and order approved. So based on the API endpoint name, you probably would have guessed that the shipping rate gets calculated there. So you can plug in your own logic in case of this. So then you can do an order calculation based on what shipping rate or what shipping style was used. So order calculation is done based on that. You can plug in your logic there. So that's where the integration event is very useful. Like all these or endpoints where one information gets passed to the other automatically because it's all integrated. So that's one thing. That's the reason they call it as integration event. This is called as order checkout integration event, which has all these endpoints and it works together. Then there is this new endpoint called order return integration event, which is again related to refund. So you just need to remember that there is an order return integration endpoint, and you can read through what is there in that in terms of what should be invoked and how refund is processed and things like that. There's an approval process involved. So just get well versed with this diagram. I don't know whether there is any question covered with this, but it's a new one, so that's why I covered in the slides. Important points. Security alert. It's considered bad practice to grant the full access role to any security profile, which is very well known to us. So clever users with this role available to them can completely remove data essential to your order cloud solution by making direct API calls, even if they are not supported by your application. So give only the permission that's required. That's the like any system, any application, you have to be careful about that. It is important to note that adding a client secret is not necessary to enable anonymous shopping or guest checkout. So in case of guest checkout, I will in the next few slides there will be this workflows related to authentication, and in that the guest workout flow is anonymous. In other words, you don't need a user ID, password, and or client secret or anything like that. So that's what that point covers. It says client secret is not required because obviously this user, they just have anonymous login. They just can browse products. They can check out products, but only during payment they will log in. So that's what it gets covered. Pre-webhook response has proceed as a JSON Boolean attribute to decide the external system validation result, to convey the external system validation result. So in the previous slides, I was talking about pre-webhook. So the webhook is used for validation. So when some validation fails, you pass a false value which to the proceed. There's an attribute called proceed, and if you say false, then that comes back to the actual calling application or the destination application and tells the validation has failed. And there is also a JSON object that gets passed with details of why it failed. So this can be used by that application. This JSON object with the value of proceed equal to false tells the application that some validation has failed, and they can convey that to the do the necessary processing in the destination application. So that's where pre-webhook is useful, wherein even before hitting actual logic, you're doing some validation and telling the webhook processing cannot be processed. So the proceed value is false. While defining a webhook, secret relates to the XOC hash, where Order Cloud will use this secret to generate a fingerprint you can validate against. So while you create a webhook, you add some fields. Out in those fields, secret is also one of the fields which you configure. So there you pass XOC hash. How do you generate that is not something that's covered in the scope of this exam, but then you just need to understand that there is something called a field called secret, which has a hash value that needs to be passed while creating the webhook. Order Cloud supports advanced querying using search keyword. There is a search keyword, sort keyword. So you can use all this to apply logical operators. Like, for example, if you see this, it is just a URL, but then you can use extended properties. Extended properties are nothing but like we are aware of properties, so you can add your own properties, custom properties, and then you can pass values to that and then get results for the order. For example, in this case, you are saying like it could be a scenario where you are saying, I don't need users with name John. They shouldn't be processed. You can write extended property query and then just filter out those users. So that's also one of the important aspects that's checked in the exam, where they talk about extended properties, what kind of queries get passed, and then they try to ask you what this query means. So it's fairly straightforward, where they use less than, greater than, and all that. So you can easily find out what it means. You can use extended properties to store data points that are not already available in the Sitecore order cloud. So the name itself says that, right? Like it's an extended property. So you create that property to do something custom for your processing. So that's why you create extended properties. And so those are an extended data point where you add your own logic and do things that are necessary for your logic. In your order cloud marketplace, color is listed as an extended property field. You need to find all the products which are black or white colored. What type of query is most used? So this is one of the, again, inspired by one of the questions in the exam. So you can easily find out that this is the answer option, because this is not effective anyway. This is the one which used the OR operator against the query. The other things are using an AND operator and all that. So take a look at the different query options: greater than, less than, equal to, and also these properties. There are some examples that is useful. Next, the competency 3, which talks about user management and access control. Order cloud uses the term API client. So the API client, like we are talking about API first interface, right? So there should be some way you can access these queries, right? So API client comes into picture. These term API client used to identify various access points to your marketplace data and entities. These access points have properties that control what parties can use it, how they can gain access, and for how long that access remains valid. So the last part, where they say how long access is valid, is part of authentication, where this client token, client secret, all that come into picture. Then there is this access token and then refresh token concept also. That will be covered in the next few slides in authentication. So yeah, the API client is mainly to query your interfaces, your data. So that's where the API clients are useful. So there are different roles even in that: allow seller, allow any supplier, allow any buyer. So if you want to give all users access to the API client, then use the allow seller role. Then otherwise use the other two, which is for the supplier and buyer. So API clients, again, we already talked about that these are all REST API endpoints, and they have the CRUD type operations. So you can see a sample of the operations that they have got, or the endpoints that they have got, like get, put, delete, post, and patch. Difference between put and patch, I'm not sure if that's asked in the exam, but you have to just keep that in mind, that put is mainly to create a new ID, completely replace an item, but patch is to replace only specific fields on an existing item. So that's something you can be aware of. We are talking about the authentication early on, which is very important. There are different types of workflows. There are 6 workflows. One of them is called password grant type. Next one is client credentials, refresh workflow, elevated password workflow, SSO via OpenID Connect workflow, then the guest checkout workflow. The guest checkout workflow is anonymous, so you don't need a user ID or password, but then you could have questions which will tell there is a client ID scope, username, password, grant type, which is set to password. What type of workflow is it? So that would, so just be thorough with this. What is part of which workflow? So that will be useful. Like the first one has separate set of attributes. If you look at the client credentials, it has a separate set of attributes. So that's important to keep in mind, because there was a question with relate to elevated password, wherein the main difference between elevated password and password grant type is you have the client secret, which is again important in case of elevated password. You need client secret as well as the grant type. So that's something very important to keep in mind. So the other thing with regard to workflows is token duration. You have a refresh token and an access token. So once a party has the appropriate level of access to your marketplace, it's important to control how long that access will last. Access token expires in duration configured for access token. Then based on refresh token duration, a refresh token is provision, and this refresh token is used to acquire a new access token. So first, there is a duration associated with access token. For that duration, the access token is functional, working. After that time, you try to use that access token, you would be told your login has expired. At that, you will get a refresh token, and that refresh token is useful for you to get an access token. So this is a basic concept about token duration and tokens, which is used during authentication process. So for elevated password flow in the authentication process, both client secret and grant type is required. In case of SSO via Open and Connect ID, Order Cloud needs Connect Client ID and Connect Client Secret. Both of these are needed for SSO with via OpenID Connect, which is nothing but login with Google, Facebook, or any third party, where you are not worried about the client secret or things like that. You just delegate the authentication process to a third party provider. So next question, when logging in with OAuth token, the user gets auth seller not active error code authentication error. What does that mean? So MPO stands for marketplace owner. The marketplace owner is inactive, not accessible to login. So if you look at this, there are different authentication errors. That's part of the documentation. I've added the URL in the end. So if you just go through these different error codes and what they means, for this auth.seller not active, the reason that the error is thrown is the MPO is inactive, not accessible to login. So that's the answer option. So other things are straightforward. You can easily find out from the answer from the error code what it really means. So it's really straightforward, not to be really worried about. So competency 4 is about environments. Basically, there are the sandbox environment, staging environment, and the production environment. Each has its own restoration time because it's cloud managed. Sitecore is managing it. So the production environment hosts live data. The staging data restored weekly from production. The sandbox is never restored. It's a fake data. They call it as a fake database because you can do all your testing there and things like that. But if you have to mock up the production data, then you have to go to the staging, which is restored every week automatically. So you can also see that there are a few regions where the order cloud is provisional, like Europe, Australia, Japan, US, and I've just listed down what is there in US because we have 3 environments. I want to showcase those 3 environments: sandbox, staging, and production. And you can see the sample URL also. It starts with sandbox API for sandbox. For staging, it starts with staging API, and for production, it starts with API. So the main important difference is for sandbox, it's mostly development or fake data. For staging, it is constantly backed up. Every 7 days, you get the data from prod automatically. Then the production database is something you need to take care of in terms of because it will host live data. How that is synchronized, how it is kept live, that part I'm not sure. That's something I need to research. Important points. The environment and region of a marketplace cannot be changed after creation. So first time you create it, you can decide what environment and region, but after that you cannot change it. There's a staging restore process that happens every week. So every week data from production automatically gets restored in staging environment. So after during the staging, doing the restore process, there are certain things that become null. Like you can see the list, you might be tested in these. So some of them that becomes null, or Sitecore order cloud sets message senders URL property to null, and all message sender assignments will not be copied over. So these things you have to back up, and that's where you have a webhook that's working. So you have to ensure that after the restore, the webhook brings back it to the original state if you want. So that's something we need to be taking care of. Webhooks URL property set to null. So these are some things which are done by the restore process. So you have to ensure that these are back to original state with the staging post restore webhook. After developing a new feature for Order Cloud, you want to test it in an environment that has fake data. Which API URL should you use? So obviously the sandbox API.ordercloud.io is the correct one, because API.ordercloud.io is the production Order Cloud URL. Competency 5, we have just 2 more competencies after this, but this is one of the most crucial competencies, which is product management. So when we initially started, we talked about a marketplace, then there is catalogs. And within catalog, you have categories. There may be product directly assigned to the catalogs, but categories just give some hierarchy for the products. But then, yeah, marketplace has catalogs, and catalogs is what hosts all your products. There is a product visibility, which is very important for the exam. So they might ask, a buyer is not able to see a product in a catalog. What is the reason? So for a buyer to see a product, so these things are mandatory. Like the product should be set to active. The catalog exists where the existing catalog must have its flag set to active again. Buyer is assigned via catalog assignment. Product is assigned via product catalog assignment. So if you look at this, there's a proper structure wherein the product must be created. There's an active flag which should be set to true. Then this product should be assigned to the catalog, and the catalog should be active. Then a buyer should be assigned to this catalog. The product again should be assigned to this catalog. So it's like a step-by-step process, which all of this should be covered. If any of this is missing, you will not be able to see the buyer will not be able to see the catalog or the product in the catalog. So this is something that will be tested in the exam. So there is the second option also, wherein one of the following is true. They say wherein the view all products for the catalog assignment should be true, or if it is following a category-based approach, then you have to ensure that the category is active, the product is assigned to the category. So that's not a mandatory one, but either or, like you can directly assign the products to the catalog, and that all products should be set to true. Or if it is part of a category, then you should ensure the second part is available. Only then the product will be visible to the buyer. Then there is the last part, if you see, to allow the user to purchase the product. Only when you want to purchase the product, you have to ensure that a price schedule must be assigned to the product. So this is only to purchase, but just to view the catalog or the products, this part is enough. The top part where 1, the yellow, 2, 3, just this first before the OR condition should be enough. So just thorough this part, this first few points, and then that should be okay, because in the exam, they will say they have assigned these things, what is missing. So this probably is missing, or one of this is missing. So that's something that will be covered in the exam. So then there is the concept of specs. Spec is something, but like when you order something, you can write information, right? Like for example, if there are multiple sizes, you can select from an option list. If you are buying a personalized gift, you can write about that spec. So that's also covered in Order Cloud. There's an open text spec where you can allow users to input their options, like free text. Option spec is nothing but selection from a pre-available list of option list. So that's not something changeable. They just can pick up from what is available. The spec options is nothing but the option list as such, the actual sizes, which is helping the option spec. A variant spec is nothing but, for example, there is different colors for a specific size T-shirt. It slices that particular option, right? Like for example, it gives more variants in terms of sizes. So that they call as variant spec actually. So different colors for a size or all variant spec. So Sitecore Order Cloud supports any number of catalogs within marketplace. So there is no limitation to how many catalogs you can create. You can create any number of catalogs. Catalog assignment helps share a catalog with any number of buyers. So you can create a catalog and share it with any number of buyers. Business can offer specific product to certain specific customers through the assignment of catalogs. So you can create just a catalog for the sake of assigning to a particular buyer. So that is also possible. Or you can create one catalog and share it with multiple buyers. That's also possible. Endpoint to assign a product to a catalog. There are different endpoints. So this could be tested. Like they could give you a situation like he's assigning the product to a catalog, which endpoint. And it would not be very complicated because the other, you can see the the verbs and figure out, because at least two options will get filtered based on these verbs. Then you can easily pick one of them. And for example, here instead of catalog ID, they would pass item ID or something. And when they talk about catalog ID and the product, obviously these are the straightforward option, right? So that's straightforward in those lines. Products can be assigned to catalog without a category. Categories help define a product hierarchy. An online shop offers shirts in 3 sizes and 4 colors: small, medium, and large. Then the colors are black, brown, gray, and blue. How many variants does this product have? Or how can we get the full list of those variants? So once you figure out the number, then the other thing is pretty straightforward, right? 3 into 4, that's how we calculate the variant. So questions are fairly straightforward, not too complicated. Competency 6, order and fulfillment management. So this is one important area that's tested. Like they say, there is a buyer, then he makes an order. So you should understand where it is coming from. If it's a buyer using the credential, the order will have an outgoing in the URL. I can show you an example in the next slide. But buyer credentials, when they use for the order to access the order, the URL will have outgoing. But if it is a seller credential that's accessing the order, it will have incoming in the URL. So the question will be like, I am a buyer, then I am trying to access the order. So what should be the URL? Because it says buyer, and then he's trying to access the order, outgoing should be there in the URL. But they might switch and ask, there's a seller who's trying to access the order. So what should be the buyer order? So what should be there in the URL? So you should look at this buyer order. You should also look at the supplier order. So based on that, you should switch over and the URL will change. So that's one important thing. I think there are at least 2 questions in this. So out of 30 questions, if you get 2 questions in this, that's a very good amount. So this is another view of that same diagram. But one thing is that you can have an endpoint which will have /all, like a buyer directly not. This is a concept of there's a specific concept called I think I'll cover in the next slide. I don't get the name at this point, but wherein you will have incoming and outgoing. What is that called as? Because a marketplace owner normally sits in between the buyer and user and the supplier. It's actually the supplier who's doing work. The owner is mainly trying to play a middleman. So there's a specific terminology for that. We'll cover in the next slide. But then the URL, if you're talking about again the order, you can have a /all wherein the buyer is directly going to the supplier. So that way you can access the order. So we can see that in the next slide. So there are different types of order status again: open, unsubmitted, open, awaiting approval, declined, completed, and cancelled. Unsubmitted is when you have saved the order, but you have not submitted actually. Once you submit, it becomes a state of open. Then awaiting approval and declined are all optional. Completed is when it has been shipped. Cancelled is when for some reason the order is not fulfilled. So you can just go through these definitions for each of the states. When the order is first created, it is in the state of unsubmitted. When the order is submitted by this buyer, it goes to a state of open. Then comes completed, where submitted and all quantities have been shipped actually. That's the most important criteria. for completed state. Shipping must be done. So there are different type of payment methods for an order. You can use credit card, purchase order, or spending account. In order cloud with an option called spending accounts, a registered customer receiving a gift card of X dollars can use it to pay their order in X dollar in full. I think this is I've heard this before. Like such options are not normally available in other applications, or business don't encourage. But this one is a provision or a feature that's provided by Order Cloud, where they can pay off their purchase using a gift card. Using a spending account. So there is also something called rule-based promotion, and that has expressions. So the expression has two parts. One is eligible expression and the value expression. So you have an example like this, like $10 off any order greater than $500. So eligible expression is order greater than 50, but the value expression is 10. So probably you can probably easily figure out, right? So the condition tells something, and what value comes at one point. So you need to understand the query and then see which is value expression, which is the eligibility expression. So that's something that's covered. So promotions are applied, and when promotions are applied, such rules are also part of it. So you need to be aware of eligibility expression and value expression, which is just a basic concept just for the exam. If an order is fulfilled by many suppliers, then the order will be forwarded from the marketplace owner to the concerned suppliers. This is called order forwarding. This is what I forgot. So order forwarding is wherein a seller is sitting between the buyer and the supplier. So they are just forwarding. They are not doing anything else. So that is called as order forwarding. So the seller will have an incoming request and an outgoing request, but they are not doing it. They're just getting it and passing it to the relevant supplier. So that is called as order forwarding, because it comes and goes. That's all. Eligible expression evaluates the current state of the order and returns true or false, indicating whether the promotion can be applied to the order. Value expression evaluates the order and returns a monetary value, which is then subtracted from the order subtotal. So eligibility, like what we saw, right? Like $10 off from total purchase. The total purchase becomes your eligible expression, and $10 is the actual value that is applied over it. So there you can use all this all this function like any, all, count, and all that. So that is all something that gets tested, like items.any, items.count. So when you say if the count of the items is greater than 100, then give 10% off. So 10% is nothing but your value expression. Users assigned with full access or order admin or shopper roles can create, submit, update, cancel, or an order. So there are only these roles that can create, update, submit, or cancel an order. So if you again go back, the order is nothing but a list of line items, and that order gets fulfilled. Then there is a order ID. Then it goes for procurement, and then that is shipped, and then the order is then delivered, fulfilled. So Blue Star is a one online shoe retailer, and Sitecore Order Cloud powers its commerce solution. Lee made an order that contained 2 sneakers and 1 pair of socks. The retailer sent the sneakers to Lee. However, due to the high volume of orders, Blue Star had to send the pair of socks separately after 2 weeks. What's the status of the order after Lee received the socks? So if they asked you before 2 weeks, then it's still in the open state. But because it has been shipped, and that's part of our definition, it is completed. The order is completed. If they say he has just submitted and they have, and the seller is yet to procure anything, that will be in the submitted state, right? Because he's just pressed the submit button and just waiting for the supplier to pick up and do the shipping. So there are different states, like so you just be aware of the definition and just select the correct option. A shopper made an order on a bouquet website. The order number is OEF7438. The buyer can access the order by calling dash So this is what we covered in those two slides. So buyer, we are talking about buyer, he's accessing the order. So it's an outgoing, which is there, and then all. We saw that those two arrows, right? It could be directly going to the supplier or it could be going to the seller. So these two are relevant actually. The buyer can access the order by calling these two endpoints because incoming is not relevant. It comes from this side, which is the seller to the order. So that if they say seller, then we would have picked up this. But because they are saying outgoing or they are saying the buyer is accessing the order, you're going for this and then this. This is totally irrelevant. Last one, we're almost there. Unsuccessful HTTP status codes. So 401 unauthorized to access the endpoint. Forbidden is role based. Like you assign roles, right? I think this will be one of the favorite questions. When you get a forbidden error, which is 403, it would be anything like the role is not assigned. Anything relating to role not assigned and things like that, just pick up that option. So I think I'm sure there will be one question at least about this 403 forbidden, which would be like they're saying somebody is not able to access the API and the option that has role in it, we should easily be able to pick up. Bad request is 400, not found. We know all this like 500 internal server errors, any kind of server issues, server processing issues that falls here. So these are status codes. Then there is a minimum password requirement that is configurable again. There is an endpoint called password config, which you can specify what length of password, what strongly typed it, what level it can be. You can specify all this criteria. If you don't follow this basic criteria, they will default it. Like this is the default. These are all defaults. So if you don't follow, like you say 9 characters, then they will default it to 10 characters and they will follow all this. So that's a default that's already in place. But if you want to override and to say 515 characters, then you can follow that and you can do a password configuration to make things secure in your application. Password config object within a security profile is used to set up password rules. For buyer user to view a purchase product, the following assignments are necessary. Product catalog assignment, catalog buyer assignment, and price schedule assignment. Like we covered that as a set of points, but if you break it down, this is the high level. Like you have to assign a product to a catalog, right? And then the product must be active. The catalog must be active. You have to assign the catalog to a buyer. If you want to purchase the product, you should have the price schedule assignment also. If you don't want to purchase, then only this part is enough. Product catalog assignment, catalog buyer assignment is more than enough. So put versus patch, we already covered this, right? For former creates or replaces an item with unique ID, but later updates the item. While using the password reset endpoint, what does the error code password reset dot invalid verification mean? Password reset attempt with expired token, user will need to wait until retrying again. So invalid verification is the first option, password reset attempt with expired token. This is available in this URL. I picked up from this URL. I just framed it as a question. That's all. That's all. We have covered it. So any questions? Oh, it's already 4:30. Has everybody slept?
No, I mean, people are there.
Okay.
So, yeah.
I'm sorry. This thing should be covered like this. Otherwise,
No issues. Yeah, you can take your time.
Yeah.
That's it. I think we started at 4:30. Good. Yeah, we are on time.
Yeah.
What else we
Right.
have?
I believe
Well, wait for some
someone.
questions. Otherwise, we'll.
Do anyone have any questions? Yes, please share it on the chat.
Oh, okay. You've got something in chat.
I don't think so.
I understand there's not
Yeah.
anything very interesting here to ask questions about. It's just like you have to take it as it is and go just prepare for the exam and go for it. That's all. Yeah.
Yeah. So you have to. Right. So if no one has any questions, and I mean, it was a great session. Thanks a lot. Nobody really knows, like, how to prepare for the auto cloud certification. And also, like, it's kind of a vague subject. It's not being explored by many of people yet, but it was great. Yeah,
Correct.
it was great that you have taken a session on this for preparing
Thank you.
the certifications. Hope,
Thank you.
people will take certifications from this crash course. And thanks a lot for your time, and thanks a lot for everyone for joining the session.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Thanks, Naveen, for your great session. It means a lot.
Thank you. Bye. Thank you. Talk to you later.
Also, like, if someone has any questions, please reach out to Naveen on LinkedIn. So he's so friendly, like, he'll be replying me back. And if you have any other questions, please shoot out a mail to contact@sugcbe.in. And we'll be also posting this video on your YouTube channel for reference. You can have it, see it later. Yeah. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Talk to you later. Bye.
Thanks, Naveen. That was a great.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Take care.